Well, are you ready? Okay. Well, one of the things that you're going to have to do as part of this course is to read scientific journals and scientific articles. And if you've never had a chance to look at them, I've got a couple here. For example, Nature is one of the premier Tier 1 research journals that you'll hear Dr. Heinrichs talk about at different things. And if I flip in here, let's see if I can find an example of one. Oh, here we go. This is an article called Rate of De Novo Mutations and the Importance of Father's Age and Disease Risk. And if you start looking at this article, you go through it, you can see it gets pretty dense in terms of its labels. It has tables, graphs, more tables, different sections of the paper, more graphs here, huge amounts of references, method summary, all these things that go into it. And it's really quite a bit to read to find out if this article is really relevant to your research. Or another example, here's one that's a letter. It says, Contrasting Patterns of Early 21st Century Glacier Mass Changes in the Himalayas. And as you look at this, again, very dense in terms of its writing, a lot of graphs that have to be interpreted, things like maps, some detailed data tables, and things where it describes methodology, interprets the results, and then page after page, really just about a full page of references describing it. And it's, again, another type of article that you may do. I give you another sample. For example, in the American Journal of Physics, one that I get frequently, is if I go in here, let me flip to an article and we'll get a chance to take a look at it. Okay, let's see, this one, here we go. An article in here about the relation between Poisson and Schrödinger equations. And if you look, it has an introduction, some beautiful little equations here, some more beautiful little equations, and some more, and finally some references. And again, if you want to make sense of this article, one way to do it is to read it. And I could show you more examples of other journals that I have here, like this one's in Science Education, and we'll look at this, a lot of things, but then you have this one, for example, which is on the improvements of epistemic understanding. And if you look at this, a lot of narrative that describes it, scoring rubrics, and then finally the data analysis, the findings, flipping through it, the analysis, the discussion of its mean, and recommended actions that go here. And this thing is, the article, if you were to read it all, even samples the things, and then all the references that are here. So all told, you have something like a 30-page article that could be relevant. And we could go on with other journals. But the one thing that you see here in all these journals is these scientific articles where they talk about introductions, talk about the relevance of the research, they talk about the methodologies, the analysis, summaries, and conclusions, is they're all this way and they're all multiple pages. So the question you have is, do you have enough time in your day to go through and read 30 articles to find those that are relevant to your research? And the answer is no, you don't. And so what we have is that you need to look closely at all these articles, and you will see things called an abstract. And if we can zoom in on this one a little bit, here's an example. This is the one that I was talking about with the Himalayas and the ice changes of mass, glacier mass change in the Himalayas. And though this is all the article, very technical that you could read through, it's this part that we want to focus on. And I'll read just a part of this. This is about 300 words or so, but it goes, glaciers among the best indicators of terrestrial climate variability contribute importantly to water resources in many mountainous regions and a major contributor to global sea level rise. So automatically, without going into all this article, I see what it's about. Then they go on. They say, in the Hindu Kush Karakoram Himalaya region, a paucity of appropriate glacier data has been prevented by a comprehensive assessment of current regional mass balance. Okay, so I know what it's about. There is, however, indirect evidence of a complex pattern of glacial responses in reaction to heterogeneous climate change signals. And here we use a satellite laser altimetry and a global elevation model to show widespread glacier wastage in the eastern thing. So already what we know is we know why this is relevant, where it's going to be, how they went about doing it, and then at the end here, and I won't read you all the details that are in here, it said for the mountain catchments of the Indus and Ganges basins, the glacier imbalance contributed about 3.5% and about 2%, respectively, to the annual river discharge and up to 10% of the upper Indus basin. And at the end of this thing is I know what I should know from this. This is called an abstract. An abstract is generally a brief paragraph that tells you what the study is about. In particular, it answers those questions about what the topic is, what the research question is, what the methods are, what the results were, and what the conclusions are. And typically that paragraph can run anywhere from 150 to 300 words up to usually a page. And an abstract, if they look, I said I had one here. If I go back into these wonderful articles here, is that if you notice even this one about non-classical light generated by quantum noise-driven cavity optomechanics, which I'm sure many of you are interested in, again, a paragraph description of what that's about. And if I even we'll go over here, if I look at my physics journal, and if we look at this, right here, very short, says a correspondence between Poisson and Schrödinger equation is obtained through a simple transformation. Tells me exactly what it's about, this analogy between two equations, and I could read all the way through it, but it comes down. Is that, again, this little abstract tells me everything about this article to tell me if it's worth my time to read, if it's research that I need to do, and this is really important. Now, the reason I point this out, this abstract here, and again, if you look in this journal, I'll flip this one up, this is the Journal of Geoscience Education, and if you look at this one, it identifies the abstract here, you probably have that, and then here, and if nothing else, I think you probably have, and I'll put that down, is at this point, I think what you could see is that if it's a Tier 1 research, which is what we want you to read, there's an abstract. So as you work on developing your bibliography and understanding the background parts or figuring out what it is that you're doing with your article, you have to know how to read an abstract. And that's usually where I start. I'll read an abstract, I'll look at the beginning, see how it's relevant, I'll look at the end, say that it result's interesting, and then I'll look at the methods, and I'll use that to help me decide what my research is, if this article's relevant, if I need to read it for more detail. Now, that's important to understand what an abstract does. But what you have to do is you have an assignment. Your assignment is to write an abstract. Now, in Blackboard, you'll find an assignment tab that says Abstract Writing, and we're giving you a scientific article from which you're to write a 150-word abstract. Now, what is there in an abstract? And tell me how much time I have.
8:20.